It's always a thing for me. Good morning. My name is Dr. Kimberly Macquarie, and I'm the Director of Programming and the Co-Director of the Innovation Labs here at the Dalí Museum. And I'm thankful to have you here this morning, and also thankful that I'm not the guest speaker this morning. Yeah, doing a lot recently. And especially excited because today we're going to be joined by a very special speaker, Leslie Elsasser from USF, and she's going to be talking about a topic that is really very dear to my heart, and that is the intersection between arts and medicine, and arts and wellness, and specifically how that's related to veterans. So I think it's going to be a really interesting talk, and we're all going to learn a lot. Of course, before we get started, I'd love to thank the City of St. Pete for their continued support of this and other programs. And then, of course, as always, thanking our members, because you are what make programs like this possible, but we wouldn't exist as an institution and wouldn't be fulfilling our mission without you. Thank you. I'd like to invite you, of course, as usual, to please visit our website at thedalí.org. We have a lot of exciting programs, and of course, as the Director of Programs, what am I going to say? But it's absolutely true. We're going to have some amazing things. So in conjunction with our Dalí's drawing exhibit, we're going to have a drawing workshop on Tuesday the 12th. That's going to be super exciting. Back from its summer hiatus on the 13th, we're going to have art and meditation. If you've never been to art and meditation, I highly suggest that you stop by. It's an hour well spent. I always feel re-energized and recharged after that session. Also back after its summer hiatus is Poetry at the Dalí, which is going to be taking place on the 14th. And we're going to have a special guest host. Helen Pruitt-Wallace won't be with us for the first edition, but we will be joined by the City of St. Pete Poet Laureate Gloria Munoz. So that'll be super exciting. And then, although I'm not the guest speaker today, I will be hosting on Saturday, the 16th, through the Innovation Labs, an Introduction to Creative Thinking workshop. So if your interest was piqued by my talk last month on Dalí and creativity, be sure to join me then. Sunday, the 17th, we have our yoga at the Dalí, and then our children's programming, Storytime and Dilly Dally. And if you missed it the first time around, it was so popular, it sold out. We have now launched a second entry for an evening of art and food with Chef Chuck Bandel. And so each of the bites that Chuck is preparing that evening are paired with a watercolor that he created of the star ingredient. So yeah, there's no end to the well that is Chuck's talent. So it's going to be an amazing night. And then on Thursday the 21st, we're going to have, it's like a combination between a lecture and a panel. It's going to be a pretty interesting discussion on drawing, and specifically on the art of drawing and all of its aspects. So we're going to have, of course, our own Peter Tush, and we're also going to have Margaret Miller and Joe Figg, and they're going to be talking about drawing from different views, from the point of view of Dalí, from the point of view of drawing as a step in the process towards different kinds of art, and then also drawing as part of the practice of the artist. So it should be really interesting. And then there will be occasion for the audience to ask questions and join in the discussion. So super excited about that. And there's so much it doesn't fit on one page. Finishing out September, we are also starting a new program. So are there any people in here who are Spanish speakers of any level? Beginning, you like my name is, you know the colors. Yeah, maybe intermediate. It honestly doesn't matter what your level is. We're going to have a new quarterly series called Surreal Conversations, and they're going to be hosted in different languages. But we're going to be starting out with Spanish in honor of Hispanic Heritage Month. So Surreal Conversations en Español. And I will be leading the first one, and I'm super excited about it. So we're going to be discussing art and practicing our Spanish at the same time. So be sure to check it out. And then rounding out the month, another fun event in honor of Hispanic Heritage Month, we're going to be hosting some wonderful scholars who wrote a book about the Cuban sandwich. And it's called The Cuban Sandwich, A History in Layers. And it will be a lecture on the Cuban sandwich, but also our own Chef Chuck will be creating some Cubans that we're going to be able to snack on as we're listening to the lecture. So it should be all kinds of fun. And then be sure to join us for our next Coffee with the Curator in October, where my wonderful colleague, Peter Tush, will be presenting on Leonora Carrington, writer, painter, visionary. For those of you who haven't heard yet, in the Raymond James room next door, we're going to be installing an exhibition on Leonora Carrington, much like the ones that we've done in past years on Paul Eluard and Aimé Césaire, celebrating surrealists who really straddle some of these disciplinary boundaries. And of course, Carrington was not only an amazing visual artist, but she was also an incredible writer. So it'll be a wonderful opportunity to explore her talents more. Now, my real job today is to introduce our amazing guest speaker. It's my pleasure to introduce Leslie Elsasser, who is the Curator of Education and an educator at the USF Contemporary Art Museum. She was the recipient of a Fulbright Fellowship to India in 2003 and was an artist in residence at Sanskriti in 2003 and 2005 and UCross in 2012. Elsasser holds a BA in Art and Design from Rhode Island School of Design, an MA in Fine Art from the University of South Florida, and has 20 years of pedagogical experience in the arts. She's currently the Breaking Barriers Program Director, and that's what we're going to learn a little bit more about right now. So please join me in welcoming Leslie.
Thank you so much for that warm welcome, Kim, and thank you everyone for coming. I'm going to be in good company. I know these people are coming to talk to you. Kim, is Barbara Cruz the one coming for the Cuban sandwich? She's one of them. Okay, these are both my colleagues on another program. I was so excited to see that. And Margaret Miller, who's coming for the drawing, is actually my boss. So you'll be in great company. As was introduced, my name's Leslie Elsasser, and I am the Curator of Education at USF Contemporary Art Museum on the Tampa campus. But before I even start, I want to give myself a little street cred so you kind of have context. What do I do? What does the Curator of Education do? Well, I don't design exhibitions, but I work very closely with the team in collections and our curators of exhibitions to design all the educational programs around the exhibition. I also design programs. I'm a team of one. So I run a full department, and if you see black circles under my eyes, you know why, because I'm working all the time. But I want to talk to you about a very special program which I have come to absolutely love and understand more about every year, and that's a program called Breaking Barriers. So Breaking Barriers, I'll tell you what it is in just a moment. It is a wellness program and an art program for our veteran community. But it started in 2017 as a pilot program. Why? We had a program then called Art and Health where we use the arts and medicine. So we collaborated with the nursing department, the College of Public Health, the medical humanities to work with a program called, or a strategy called Visual Thinking Strategies and VTS, and to work with all the creative aspects of the notion of creativity, of close looking, and we'll talk a little more about unpacking that and what that looks like, to obtain certain skills and to learn to conceptually think, to critically think, to reflect, and to enhance some of our natural senses. Well, in 2017, and by the way, I'm just going to preface it by saying almost all the images I'm going to show you are out of the workshops from the veterans this summer. So I'm not going to name them all because you're going to see a lot, but I just want to let you know that most of the images come from there. So in 2017, UF and Shands Hospital wrote to us because they have a really robust art and health program. And they said, would you like to be one of 3 of a consortium of Museums to develop pilot programs for veterans. So the other two, we were in good company, were Low and the Harn up at UF. And we said, yeah, we would love to. And we decided to go to certain workshops and lead certain workshops and roundtable discussions with veterans on campus and in the community to see where the gaps were, what we needed to do. And so we wrote a program that became part of this compendium for Florida museums on programs that are possible with the Low and the Harn for their veteran communities. We're the only one that continued to grow, and we grow every year, and we expand every year. We're trying not to get too big for our britches because we are a very small team, but that's what I'm going to share with you, is the Breaking Barriers program. So we developed that as an extension. We had really 3 primary goals, and those goals were to offer experiential programming to veterans and their families. And it was all through photographic or the lens-based media. When we started in the studio. 2018 was our first one. That was pre-COVID. Our second goal was to learn communication techniques and a language, both visual and verbal, and to gain thinking abilities, cognitive and critical thinking abilities. And we'll talk a little bit about why, and gain some new tangible transferable skills. And our third part was to give access to the arts, but also to create access between the civilian community and the veteran community. And we were hoping in turn that this would have therapeutic benefits and also be able to create lasting effects and change the culture and the misconception sometimes of the veteran from the silent veteran into a storyteller, into a narrator, and to share their stories in a broader way. This is one of the things we found when we did the roundtable discussions, that veterans felt, and I'm not saying all veterans, I'm just using this as a category right now, but they felt isolated, that they couldn't even share stories of deployment with their family. Mothers who had been deployed felt guilty leaving their kids in charge with their family, their significant others, their extended family. And these were things that were very hard to communicate, and especially to communicate to a civilian population. So, who do we serve? Well, Hillsborough County has about 1,500,000 residents, and out of that, about 98,000 of those are veterans, not including the families. USF has about 50,000 students, and out of that, 7,000 of those students are student veterans. So there was a huge population that we looked at that we could actually serve. So why did we decide to do this? Well, as an academic museum on a large campus, part of our mission is to bring contemporary or completely contemporary art museum, to bring contemporary arts to the public being the public at large, the public also being the public on campus, which are our constituents. And as an academic museum, our primary mission is as a teaching and research museum. So we thought we could give access to the power of the arts. Just so happens that Hillsborough County has the highest demographic of veteran population in the state of Florida. Florida and Arizona have the 2 highest demographics of veteran population in their state. We're home to MacDill Air Force Base and Central Command for Secret Forces, et cetera. And that was a huge demographic that we really, in the arts, I have to be honest, really never considered. But it's a tremendous amount of our public that we give access to the power of art. USF was ranked #1 of universities for their veteran population. So our community on campus was vast in terms of the veteran population. And many of these veterans have returned from multiple deployments, and they're returning to integrate into a civilian population. But that civilian population has greatly changed in the last decade or in the last 20 years. Others came back with injuries, some visible, many not, TBIs, traumatic brain injuries, PTSD, and they really needed a set of skills that were transferable to reintegrate and to heal. And we have a fabulous veterans hospital. It's called the James A. Haley Veterans Hospital. But they only have 2 creative therapists on their staff. And so the need to come back and learn skills, to have art-related, maybe therapeutic benefits, and to do this locally, we found that there was a huge gap in the population that encompasses our population in Hillsborough County and on the USF campuses. So the program we decided, and I want to preface this by saying something. We are not therapists. We are not considering ourselves therapists. We learned about the therapeutic benefits through our assessments, which I'll tell you about later. But we have 4 parts to our program. The first part is now 6-week workshops, photographic workshops, where they are led by artists. And it's very weird for me to stand still, so I'm sorry, I feel very hyper. I'm not used to it, I'm a professor, I move. So we do photographic workshops. Now, this was all really terrific. We did video, all lens-based, mostly photography with DSLR cameras, until COVID happened. And then what? What were we going to do? We had just started the program, phenomenal feedback. What were we going to do? We also noticed, second part of that problem was that a lot of our veterans were homebound. They had limitations because of physical disabilities, limitations on their mobility. So what we started to do is to do everything through cell phone cameras. And this is really important because that camera you all have in your purse or your pocket is more powerful than the computers that we had 15 years ago. And everybody has one. It's completely democratic. And we thought, well, we're not going to change the nature of the program. It is going to be, and here's the most important point, artist-led. Why? And it's not popsicle sticks and glitter. People are not coming and doing like, I feel blue today, therefore I'm going to make a blue photograph. They are learning from true artists in the field, pedagogues who actually do this, who have learned to think critically, who have learned to put process, which is a cognitive kind of thinking, into work, and to hire artists that have also worked or are sensitive to veterans. So last year, I'm very proud to say, we started a beginning, because of our assessment, a beginning and an advanced workshop. And veterans learn a new language, which is a visual language. For veterans, by the 3rd workshop, you could see people foaming at the mouth. Because to launch into the world of the unknown is really going to take a lot of trust from people who have based their career on facts. So this idea to expand the thinking, to multidimensional thinking, and then process-based thinking really takes a good artist who is tried and true, has been down the road. So that's the first part. The second part is a VTS, Visual Thinking Strategies. It's a session at the museum. It includes a small writing workshop. So the session's designed to increase vocabulary around the artwork. We use artwork selected from the workshops. In fact, we're doing our 2 workshops in October for the museum session from the workshops we had in the summer. But we also do a private tour of the exhibition to start to put language behind experience, behind observations, to use close looking as a way to idealize, as a way to start a conceptual practice based on evidence of a primary source, which is actually the artwork. The third part is an exhibition at the Contemporary Art Museum. Why do we do this? We try and build a bridge between, and it's open to the public, it's free, build a bridge between the civilian population and the veteran population. We hope to smash preconceived ideas on both sides of the coin. What we have learned is veterans come in thinking artists are a little loosey-goosey, a little fray around the edges, where it's actually a discipline. It has a philosophic structure, right? And then the making structure, the experiential part. And then people in the arts often think of the veteran population or the military machine as this one idea, but forgetting that it's made up of individuals with rich experiences, families, homes, lives, thoughts, and personal experiences. So we do that. And then I started a couple years ago, and this is live in a museum, doing an artist panel with anybody who would like to volunteer from the group. And this has really been a challenge for veterans because you are very vulnerable. I do give them the questions I'm going to ask the night before, but not before that. Why do we do this? Because the arts are smart. You're all here. You know that. The arts do foster ideas. Sometimes the veterans don't even know the level at which they're working at. So to present them in the best delights, in a dignified setting, and to hear their voice is extremely powerful. And then the show travels to the VA. This year it'll go from January to May, and we'll have our exhibition in May. I think it's the 14th. The fourth part is a full color catalog, an exhibition catalog, with narratives by each of the participants about one of their works. That's why we do the writing workshop, so that they start to learn how to craft the ideas that they've done through the visual language into a storyteller. So they have different modes of expression, and they also have entries by the curators and by the artists themselves, and of course our director, which is Margaret Miller. So those are the 4 parts of the program. And I wrote this all down, so if anybody wants to take a screenshot, you certainly can. I am totally all right with that. So within that, we had some loose wellness goals. Our first wellness goal was to contribute to the research in this line of work. And I'm going to say that this came out of, as I mentioned, our arts and health, which really went on a hiatus during COVID and is currently on a hiatus. But I worked quite a lot with Sarasota Memorial, the doctors and nurses there, on these wellness modalities, and realized there was some research about the creative process in medicine, but we hope to contribute to that also. And to add to that pool, because it's not very large, our second was to teach those new intangible transferable skills. It could be anything from camera operations to how to light, to how to think about something, think with a workflow sequentially, abstractly. And they do learn editing on the phone. So this camera, this powerful camera, is a camera that's always with people, so that they have that technology at their fingertips and they could take that into multiple professions. We also like to develop aesthetic development, foster aesthetic development to increase visual literacy. As you all know, we live in an increasingly visual world. So for us to be able to discern the world around us visually is so important, and to enhance those cognitive and critical thinking patterns and thinking abilities. We also wanted to make the link between visual and verbal and written communication to give different modes of skills to practice and provide a safe space. This was really important as a wellness modality. We learned during our roundtable discussions with veterans that they really wanted a safe space. As they said, and I quote, "Veterans like to talk to veterans." It's not a safe place when you come back from multiple deployments, when you've missed 10 years of civilian life. And this was so important for us to create. And I can tell you, if you ask later, the multiple ways we create that safe space. And the last part was give visibility to those narratives to start the healing process. And it's not only visibility to each other and to the museum world, it's also visibility to the civilian world and the veterans themselves. How many of you have made artwork in your life? Lots of you. How many of you have shown in a gallery your artwork or what have you? Anybody? It is so weird when you walk in and see your work, right? And you go like, oh, I didn't know I did that. I did that. Oh my gosh, I hope they don't see what I was really thinking, because I really didn't self-reflect in all those aspects. We hope the veterans can have that experience, but also overhear the casual conversations to learn more introspectively about themselves towards a healing process. And I want to say, not every veteran is a broken individual, but we can all grow, right? So even the healthiest of us can learn something. I think you should all go to the drawing workshop, by the way. Just saying. So Within those 4 parts, we have wellness goals. In the studios, we hope to develop positive strategies to engaging the unknown. That's a scary place in the best of days, right? And have some cultural competence, empathy, self-awareness. These traits are also highly valued by medical practitioners. The VTS session in the museum, how many of you have participated in a visual thinking strategy session? Anybody? A couple. All right. Oh, try and find one. You're in for a treat. It's really viewer-centered, where you express your ideas through your personal experience. Collectively, you come to some ideas, and this is why we do it, to foster close looking, collaborative meaning making, build some empathy, and solve problems that are difficult to put into words based on primary evidence, which is what you're looking at. Through that process of visual storytelling, when it comes together, we have the exhibition so that the narrative becomes larger than one single person. So that there's access between the civilian world, the academic world, the art world, and the veteran world. And by doing that, we hope to broaden visibility, both for the veterans, but also for the community. That is who we serve. And then we do the full color exhibition catalog. This is a magical place. This gives a broad reach. We print them, they're free. We print about 200, and then we do them at cost on demand. We also offer the PDFs entirely free to anybody who'd like one. And I probably should have brought some, but I didn't even think of it. But if you'd like to go to our website, if you'd like to see them, they're free to you in a PDF form. We do this for people who have limited mobility, for people who do research. It's part of our goal in the wellness model to contribute to that research and give documentation to each artist of what they're doing for it to live through posterity. Whoops. So I just want to say, we don't make this stuff up. Just saying. I'm not so bold to say I'm a therapist or I came up in the medical world. I did not. I came up, I'm a fine artist. I was a painter and sound. Installations. I did my MFA. I did an MA in art history when I got back because I studied non-Western art. I was in India for a number of years. And everything we do as an artist and as an art historian is evidence-based. So is this program. So some of it comes out of the creative art therapy. It's called CAT. There's not a ton of research. I'm going to lay out some for you guys if you are interested in this, but we share similar methods, objectives, outcomes, but I can't emphasize enough, and I want to kind of move on this. We are not therapists. We don't have a therapeutic degree. That is not what we do. We may offer certain modalities that have therapeutic effects, but we work closely with the creative therapist at the VA, James A. Haley. Her name is Marilee Jorn. She's my partner in crime for moving the exhibition across, but also coaching. And I did quite a bit of learning, and I have had quite a bit of instruction about these different occurrences, because people do have trigger points, but we are not the therapists. We offer a program with therapeutic wellness benefits. So I want to quote Donna Betts. She worked with Creative Forces, and she published quite a few interesting white papers. And for us, we apply it like this, but I am going to read the quote because I don't want to misquote her. We say in photography workshops, our participants learn photography skills while also developing a visual language. And this is what Donna Betts has to say about this. She says, art making, quote, teaches the language of expression that channels and stabilizes behavior and emotions, such as grief, survivor's guilt, anger, and anxiety. I'm going to say that again. Art making teaches the language of expression that channels and stabilizes behavior. This is what art does. We're not making it up. Art does this naturally through the process of making and self-reflection. So we are following on these models and building our program based on these models of creativity, of making, of self-reflection, review, verbalization, articulation, etc. As recently as 2020, there was support published, and I'm going to show you these sources in a minute, for the use of creative arts in the improvement of TBIs and PTSD. TBIs are traumatic brain injuries. They can happen in multiple ways. They can happen from gases. They can happen from projectiles. They can happen from artillery. They can happen from loud sounds, losing, certain functions in the brain. And PTSD is, we all know what PTSD, and there's also PTS. Not everybody's depressed. But as recently as 2020, and the VA works with this, supports the use of the creative arts, which are the CAP programs, in the amelioration of TBIs and PTSD. So we really work with these models, but we don't measure those particular outcomes. There was another study done between the creative art therapies and VTS that have a wide range of therapeutic benefits and outcomes when used together to improve progress and speed treatments in preparedness. So we do use those together, although we are not therapists. Evidence also suggests that providing veterans with the opportunity to express themselves and share their stories can help with the most common symptoms of PTS, PTSD, and just depression. How many of you are veterans? Is there anybody here? Yeah, a couple. Okay. So some people are deployed, some people did service here, and thank you to the veterans here for your service. Some people don't come back with physical ailments or necessarily PTSD or TBIs. Some people have depression, feel lost. There's just a benefit of community, which we have seen in a lot of studies about aging and just about longevity that involve community. And we work towards all these different nodes at the same time with a deceptively simple program. So also engaging with narratives and myth-busting that assumption of stereotypes, learning language, representation of, in and of itself. All of these things allow a communication and for veterans to communicate effectively and find words not only to describe artwork, but to describe life, to describe family life. There was a woman named Janelle several years ago, and she was extraordinary. And if you go on our website, you'll see some of her photographs. But Janelle had a survivor's guilt for a team she managed in the Middle East, and she also had mom guilt. Has anybody ever experienced mom guilt? Yeah, okay. A lot of you, right? I'm a mom to a four-legged, but I put him in daycare for like days like today, and I'm like, oh, is he going to be okay? I have to look at Facebook later, see if his picture's on there, right? But she freaked out on the second week of breaking barriers. I don't know what to photograph. It all seems so meaningless until she started photographing the messiness of her home life, because she couldn't keep it together. She couldn't keep together her 3 kids, her husband being deployed. She had just come back, and she made the most extraordinary photographs of her dog tags, her kids nursing, just the little Detrius of her nightstand, and the amount of medication between her and her husband and her kids. And these weren't even veteran photographs. I mean, these were just life photographs. But when people start to unravel where the anxiety might come from, the unmanageability, or the successes, and I'm going to show you a photograph, I think it's next on here, it becomes an extraordinarily powerful story when you see that all together, and at the end of that 6-week journey with other veterans, even in the virtual platform. Okay, be real, folks. By the time we started going back out, how many of you wanted to do one more thing versus Zoom? Oh, right? When I see a Zoom invitation for a meeting come through, I'm just like, oh, this can't be happening, right? I think we all have PTSD from Zoom. Like somebody says that, you go like, oh, right? Well, this platform we use is Zoom because we have people we realized who can't go out. We also have a limited budget. I mean, that's a real thing, right? We just found out yesterday we scored the highest on one of the grants we wrote. Hopefully, that means we'll get the grant. So we can grow the program and go back to doing one studio in the College of the Arts, who we collaborate with, if indeed this happens, and still offering the cell phone photography because this has proved invaluable for people who can't get out in terms of making art, but in terms of community as well. So think about this. We can't even do a meeting on Zoom. Try doing a video class through Zoom. Yikes, right? So we do measure outcomes, and I think this is important to tell you. We measure outcomes. We don't do it actually. We have outside sources. So we've partnered with researchers at the VA before, and we didn't do that for the last few years because what we found is once we hooked up with the VA asking questions, which we never thought of, the veterans were dubious. Like, where is this information going? Even though we promised we wouldn't share it, we don't share email addresses. We don't share last names. If people don't want to have their cameras on, they don't have to. We make sure there are no names below the captions on Zoom. We go through a lot of protocols, and anybody working on the program is highly trained for this. Anybody working on the program, I have one assistant and sometimes somebody else. So basically, it's short training. But we use a combination of qualitative and quantitative. Lately, we've been partnering with the Communications College at USF, and there is within there a bubble and of folks that work with veterans, and that's what their communication studies have been. And they've been doing our assessments. So they rate anything from the success of our goals to the success of the implementation, to the instructors, to the projects, to a whole litany of things, to the experience, accessibility, levels of availability. Because I do want to tell you something. During those 6 weeks in the summer, everybody thinks I have summers off. Wrong. During those 6 weeks, it's 24/7 for me. Because you do get a lot of questions. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of little wrinkles to iron out. But I'm just going to read a couple. And of course, I chose these. But this is a basic tenor of the kind of things, of feedback we get, which helps us build the program. So one of these, the first one's from 2021, the second one's 2022. I valued learning on a creative level with my veteran brothers and sisters. It's a therapy that has an outcome I wish I could box and sell. I parrot that. I wish I could box and sell that retirement plan, but we don't. This is a free program, 100% free, and we believe in paying our artists. The rest of us work on pro bono, but our artists we pay well because it is really them leading the veterans through, and the program is offered free. If we do studio programs, the equipment is also, we try and have enough equipment on loan for people who don't have DSLR cameras or video on the DSLRs. And we provide the editing software as well. The second was from last year, and we just got this in. They said, I think it was a very good workshop, in the sense that I learned a new technical skill and learned a little bit about myself. Who could ask for more, right? And I actually learned a lot from other participants in the class. That is our goal. So I want to show you all, before we just talk about it, a couple things. I found this quote when I was working with Sarasota Memorial, and I use this in my medical humanities class, which I'll be teaching tomorrow, 3 sections of tomorrow. And it says, in the worlds of both art and medicine, individuals imagine experiences beyond their own and test hypotheses. By integrating their own prior knowledge and intuition, don't ever underestimate your intuition. And by comparing their evidence with that of others. There is a direct link between medicine and art at the very core of the process. And we believe that these transferable, tangible, and psychological skills improve all aspects of life, not just wellness, but well-being for a human being to be in the world and to be well. And these transferable skills are applicable to a lot of professional, peer-to-peer, rehabilitative, and academic settings. This is why we do it every year, and we keep it going. So some of these skills are used in professions, including diverse medical practices, and they're available in veteran healthcare. Not everybody's able to go into the VA. Not everybody is enrolled in a VA. But for us, and this is really coming from me, I believe museums can use the very nature of creativity and creating, and that act, to offer our communities, whether in St. Pete, whether in Tampa, whether in Hillsborough and Pinellas County, wellness benefits. And I think that is one of the greatest strengths of the art world and the museum world, is we have the abilities to do that and share that with our communities. And if you'd like a screenshot, I just wrote, I'm not going through every one of these, do not worry. I just wrote these down if you wanted a screenshot of some recent articles that have come out in diverse and sundry, but important, different publications. So different art-related therapies, creative cat therapies, but also ones in the medical field. And some of these are through the medical humanities. Some of these are in creative forces. Some of these are in the Journal of Museum Education. And we have yet to publish something, which I deeply regret, but it's a question of doing versus time, and really running the programs, being an integral part of developing the programs and working with the people in the programs is really very, very important to me. So on that note, I want to thank you for coming today, and I want to invite you to ask any questions that you might have. Thank you.